Australian Medical Association to tax us yet again. There is already a differentiation in price and in taxation between processed foods, sugary foods and fresh foods. It's called the GST. It's a 10% levy, yet the AMA is pushing for extra taxes on sugary foods. They're also pushing for extra taxes now on alcohol. And I spoke earlier in the week to Senator David Leyonhjelm, the Liberal Democrat senator from New South Wales. He's written a piece in the Daily Telegraph today where he's just shown more of his uncommon good sense, and he's done it in a very, very ironic and funny way, talking about the tax policies and the sugar tax idea that's being promoted by the AMA. He says, next, there should be a skin tax, a 20% levy on melanoma-causing budgie smugglers and bikinis is a small price to pay for protection against the sun's cancer-causing rays, with a tax break, of course, for the very sensible burkini. We should also raise the tax on alcohol. Yes, it's already taxed to the gills, but since people keep drinking it, clearly it's not high enough. And he says Australia should also tax water-based activities. The number of drownings grows every year, 291 in 2017 compared with 266 in 2015. Water obviously poses a serious threat to our health. If people are going to be irresponsible enough to go near the stuff, they should pay for the costs of being rescued and resuscitated. So tax them on the water as well. He makes a very, very good point here, David Leyonhjelm. That is, this idea that anything you don't like, you can just tax, is a ridiculous excuse to continually increase the tax burden on us, the responsibilities and the reach of government. And David Leyonhjelm joins me on the line now. You had a lot of fun writing that article, David.
It was a bit of fun, yeah. Taking the piss out of people you disagree with is quite good for your soul. But
it makes a very powerful point, because this has become the go-to strategy now. If anybody wants to oppose anything and demonstrate they oppose anything and do it in a way that actually extends the reach of government, they say whack on a tax, a sugar tax, a carbon tax, a fat tax, an alcohol tax, an Alcopops tax.
Yes, you're right. I mean, this is quite an issue. It's the assumption being made is I disapprove of something, I'm a smart person, other people are not doing things the way I think they should, therefore I am entitled to do something, impose a tax, ban it, limit it, restrict it, do something like that, in order to push them in a direction that they should have worked out for themselves if they were as smart as me. It's classic nanny state. That's how the nanny state works, although it's not just limited to nanny state stuff. We get plenty of things where people will argue, I disapprove of something, therefore it should be banned. And you hear it when people say the government ought to do something.
Yeah.
As soon as I hear that statement, the government ought to do something, I run for the hills. It's a terrible thing to say.
Yeah, why does every problem seem to be something that a government should fix? For instance, we're talking about the pineapple glut here and a cannery not being available to process the excess pineapple. Sure, that's a problem, but this is something the market should fix, not government.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Governments are not very good with markets. They usually distort them quite badly. And when they do get involved in markets, they end up with surpluses or shortages. And of course, if we go the whole hog and we have the government controlling the entire market, which we get in socialism, Russia and Cuba and places like that used to be, Cuba currently still, Russia in the past, you end up with enormous quantities of things you don't need in the wrong place. And the market never allows that sort of thing to occur, because somebody loses their job, somebody goes broke, somebody loses money. They know that that sort of thing should not occur. Whereas in a government-controlled market, nobody loses their job, nobody gets reprimanded for getting stuff wrong.
Indeed. Actually, when we're talking about the propensity for new taxes and for doing good through taxes, of course, I missed out the latest example in New South Wales, at least, the return and earn scheme, which I call the tax and refund scheme. It's a classic example, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That has been a sacred cow of the so-called progressives now for decades. South Australia has had a deposit scheme on containers, drink containers, for several decades now, and it's it's been championed by the Greens and their allies for a long, long time now, and they've finally succeeded in getting it through the New South Wales Parliament, much to my disgust. The issue is, of course, whether it actually improves the litter situation. Do we have a cleaner environment as a result of these containers?
Yeah, we will see, but there doesn't seem to be any evidence to suggest that so far.
No, that's right. In South Australia, it's not the case. There's no evidence that South Australia has less litter than the other states which don't have this container legislation. It's just a feel-good thing. You know, it's a bit back to what we were saying before. I disapprove of litter, and we all do.
Exactly.
Therefore, some people will say, therefore, the government should do something. So what should we do? Container deposit legislation. You and I would say, no, the government shouldn't do anything other than perhaps say to people, look, it's your country, your society. Don't treat it with disrespect.
Yeah, indeed. I often talk about this strong link between this sort of nanny state intervention and gesture politics. People want to demonstrate that they're against litter, so the only way to demonstrate it is to propose some policy. It's a way of getting some virtue signalling into the mix, and it's killing policy around the country at the moment. I want to come to another example that you've highlighted to us via your office, and the AMA, the Australian Medical Association, which loves to get involved in just about every political issue going around these days. One of its submissions, apart from increasing taxes on sugary items and the like, suggests that we should get rid of vending machines that sell unhealthy products. So when you're stuck at work late or you're in the office and you want to get yourself a packet of chips or a can of soft drink from one of these vending machines, that they should actually be banned. We should get rid of them. But your office has noticed that even in the AMA's own office building, on their floor, there is a vending machine.
Yes, it's not a case of practice what you preach. In the case of the AMA, they do have vending machine in the foyer of their own office in Canberra. And the whole idea, though, that getting rid of vending machines will somehow do people good is also quite ridiculous. It suggests that people are so weak-minded, so unable to control what they spend their money on, that the mere presence of a vending machine will have people rushing out spending money on things that the AMA disapproves of. They may, in fact, be not particularly good for us. But
well, this is the point, David Leyonhjelm. None of us are smart enough to work any of this out for ourselves. None of us can decide what to put in our own mouths, how to spend our own money, how to manage our own lives. We need laws and programs and taxes to dictate all this to us, apparently.
Yes, apparently so. And the AMA seems to think that it has substantial expertise in this, in all of these areas. In fact, I tell a joke, and what's the difference between God and a doctor? God doesn't think he's a doctor.
Indeed.
And they're obviously intelligent people, and they have expertise in treating people. But why does that mean they are entitled to tell us how to live our lives? And in any case, even if all their advice is absolutely beautiful, absolutely in our best interests, if we followed it, we would be better off. Let's suppose that's not true, but let's suppose that was the case. Why the hell should they have some say over whether we decide to take their advice or not? We are entitled to do bad things to ourselves, to live poorly, to make bad choices, and it's not the AMA's or doctors' business. They make bad choices themselves often enough, but that's their business as well. Our business is the choices we make. That at absolute most, they can say to us, you are making a bad choice. But when it goes beyond that, they are interfering in our lives, and they shouldn't be doing that.
Spot on, David Leyonhjelm. Thanks for joining us again.
My pleasure.
That's the Liberal Democrat Senator for New South Wales, David Leyonhjelm. He speaks so much sense on these nanny state issues. In many ways, there are a lot of people in Parliament who echo his voice on many of these issues, but in many ways, with the clarity and his conviction on these issues, he is a bit of a lone voice in the Senate and trying to limit the reach of government to every aspect of our lives. We're going to come back